What up, y'all? This is Macaulay Sexton of Sexton Sobriety, and today I want to talk about interventions and my personal experience with an intervention. So basically, in active addiction, I got to the point to where I was experiencing symptoms of respiratory failure. I would wake up in the middle of the night gasping for air. My cat would sleep on my chest, and my mom would come into the room and check and see if the cat was moving up and down, and that's how she could tell if I was alive or not. Basically, this was my life for about a little bit over a year, the last year of my addiction. At this point, I was on a lot of opiates, a lot of benzos, and I was abusing Ambien during the day. And so this was just a very deadly combination. Basically, my mom reached out to an addictionologist. This addictionologist said, wow, we need to get him into treatment ASAP because the combination of drugs that he's on is very dangerous, and it's a miracle that he hasn't died yet. Basically, during that time, my mom had a boyfriend who was pretty wealthy, and so he offered to pay for my treatment. So they went about getting an interventionalist so that they could intervene. I ended up waking up at about 5 a.m. to a knock at my bedroom door. I opened the door and there was a woman standing there. I automatically did not like her vibe or her energy. She felt like she was extremely accountable and direct, and so I could feel that. I had a radar for people that were extremely direct because I was the complete opposite, and I avoided accountability and direct language like a plague because I knew deep down that I would have to address my behaviors, address my past traumas, and all that stuff if I was around people like that. So basically, she asked me if I wanted to come out to the living room and talk. I said no. I slammed the door, I went into my room, and I basically threw a fit. I destroyed my room, I broke stuff, I threw stuff around, I used a bunch of substances that I had in my little stash. Usually every addict will have like a stash of substances, and I definitely had that. So I just used a whole bunch of different stuff. Basically, I reluctantly ended up going out. It was my mom, my girlfriend, and the addictionologist. And basically, they shared how they really felt about my addiction. They shared what it was making them feel like, and they shared that they were scared and that they cared about me and that it was robbing them of any peace. And that did hit home. Like, they had shared in the past about how it was concerning, but they never really went that deep with it. During this time, I was so codependent that I was like, okay, like, I kind of get what you're saying. And so they gave me an ultimatum, and they said, if you don't go to treatment, then we're cutting you out of our lives. So that was enough to be like, okay, fine, I guess I have to do this. And basically my counterpoint was like, you better take me to get my substance that I feel that I need. And that was what I wanted. So basically I ended up taking just so many different substances that day. You know, Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin. I, at that point, was on methadone, so I took that. I took extra methadone. I think I took about maybe 100 milligrams extra, and I was already on a very high dose, so this was very sketchy. I took a bunch of Ativan, and I was even taking them and putting them inside of my gabapentin. I had a gabapentin script, and I was like anticipating being in treatment, and I thought maybe I would have access to the gabapentin, so I was hiding them inside of these capsules. And that just kind of tells you where I was at. I also was just acting out. I was so mad. I was blaming them. And I really wanted to touch on that there's this weird thing that goes on with addicts to where they know deep down that, you know, what they're doing is not working, but they will also project stuff onto everyone around them, the people that they love, and really try to blame them. And it's this weird thing, it's this weird phenomenon that exists with addicts. Unfortunately, that lasted for a long time for me. But anyways, I'm gonna resume the intervention story. So I went to the airport the same day. The same day I was in the airport, I was yelling at the airport. It was just a whole shit show. It was not cool. So I got onto the airplane with my girlfriend. She actually escorted me there, which was really amazing that she did that. And, you know, I'm on this plane, and the whole time I'm like, I'm praying that the plane will crash. That's where my mind was at. I wanted the plane to crash. And at one point in the airport, I was yelling out, "Does anybody have any Xanax?" And I was like really struggling to try to get some more pills because I knew that, you know, my time was up. I ended up going and having my last drink ever at a bar. I remember it was a Stella Artois, and it was at the Dallas airport. And that was the last time I had a drink of alcohol, and it's been 7 years. So I went to treatment, you know, for 3 months, and it was a very interesting experience. But really what I want to get at is that sometimes it's really important to intervene in people's lives, even if they're not ready, you know, because I thought I was doomed to die from addiction. So I never really felt ready. I just thought that it wasn't an option. And so the fact that I had people in my life that were able to intervene and to force treatment was actually very pivotal on my road to recovery. Later, I gained the will to recover and to live. So it wasn't something that I had like that. I had to my brain had to clear up. Point blank, my brain had to clear up so that I could really see where my life was going, and I could really see that, hey, I'm being offered a solution, you know? And so, yeah, I'm extremely grateful that I was offered that solution and that I was forced to go into treatment, because after a few months, I started to gain some willingness and I started putting in some positive action. I started to learn positive coping skills, and I just did it with, you know, practice and repetition. And I'm really just a huge advocate for practice and repetition, because that's a huge part of my recovery. So yeah, anyone out there that has a family member that is struggling with addiction and you can afford treatment, please offer that to them. And if they're in a position to where they're at risk of death, then you can literally force them. You can get them court ordered to go to treatment, and so they can't leave. And I'm sorry, but I'm all for that. If someone is at risk of death and they can't make decisions for themselves, and they're just being extremely impulsive and making decisions that hurt themselves and others, sometimes you have to intervene and to offer treatment. So I'm extremely grateful to have had the opportunity to go to treatment. And I also want to say that people can recover without interventions, without treatment, without the traditional clinical route. You know, anyone can recover, and there's so many options when it comes to recovery. So I really just want to emphasize that and say that we live in a day and age with so many resources. So if you're struggling, just go on Google, you know, look up addictionologists near me. You can talk to an addictionologist. They can really help and guide you because they practice addiction medicine. So if you're on medications currently from a doctor who is not practicing addiction medicine and you are an addict, I strongly encourage you to go to an addictionologist, because they will know how to better treat you, basically. So yeah, I mean, that's my experience with an intervention. It was definitely very trippy, and I didn't have a good reaction to it, but you know, I can say that it got me to where I'm at today. And I don't know if I would still be clean and sober 7 years later if I didn't have that intervention and if I didn't go to inpatient treatment. One more thing I want to say is that when it comes to treatment, residential treatment, aftercare is extremely important. So sober living, intensive outpatient, counseling, sober coaches, sponsors, you know, recovery meetings, whether it be 12 steps or their alternatives, you know, there's therapy, counseling, all this stuff needs to be talked about. It's way, way deeper than just going to treatment for 30 days and then going back out into the world. And quite frankly, I don't think 30 days is enough treatment for anyone. So that's just my personal opinion and experience. I want to offer support to anyone out there that's suffering, and once again say, reach out to me. My emails are open. MacaulaySexton1@gmail.com is my personal email. You can also hit me up at sextonsobriety@gmail.com, Sexton Sobriety on TikTok, and Sexton Sobriety on Instagram. Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to curate a community on here, and I hope you guys like the long form videos. Much love. Please be easy on yourself.